Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me this evening is a phenomenal woman that I had the opportunity to recently connect with across social media lines. She is an author, she's an advocate, she's a speaker, she's a survivor, but most importantly, she's a woman of God. And she's taken out time out of her very busy schedule to hang out with us this evening to share a little bit of her story, a little bit of her journey with the hopes of inspiring, encouraging, and uplifting others, especially when it comes to dealing with the challenges of life. So it is my privilege and honor, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you our very special guest this evening, Miss Keeya Vawar. Keeya, thank you so much for being on the show.
Show.
Thanks for having me. I'm so very glad to be here.
Absolutely,
Absolutely,
absolutely.
absolutely.
So before
So
we get into
before
our
we get into
segments
our
for this
segments
evening,
for this evening,
I do want to
I
give
do
you an
want to give you an
opportunity to share a
opportunity to
little bit
share.
about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do. Kind of give our audience a snippet of who is Keeya Vawar.
Absolutely. Well, obviously, my name is Keeya Vawar. A lot of people ask me, where'd you get that last name? I was married, been married to a man from Liberia, West Africa, and it means men don't cry. And it's actually said or pronounced a little bit different, but we'll get into that later because I don't have that thick African accent. Yeah, who am I? Right now, as a occupation, I'm an executive director of Mosaic Mission Network, which is a church planting organization here in the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex area. And our offices are in Bedford, Texas. And we reach the world. The part of the world that we most importantly reach is Liberia, West Africa. And the message goes abroad in African countries and things of that nature of what we do, which is planting churches. And so a lot of the pastors come here to the U.S. and they are sent through the denomination that we belong to. They're sent through the seminary, and then after the seminary, they plant their churches, and we oversee grants and funding and things of that sort. And so that's something that I've done. Also credentialed as an evangelist, but more importantly, I'm just a child of God. I'm just a daughter. I'm just a daughter. I have three wonderful children, ages 23, 22, and soon to be 20 on the 22nd. And I'm 50 years old. I turned 50 this year. And so that was a milestone year for me. And I robbed the cradle. We're not going to get into that. But I have been married 24 years. And so that's uh, where we stand. Now, I also have a background, unfortunately, in sex trafficking. Human trafficking is more apropos nowadays, but the reality is it was just sex trafficking. Back in the times that I was going through that for about 6 years, it was actually just juvenile delinquency and childhood prostitution. And so there's a lot more that we'll get into concerning that. But now I have the pleasure of advocating for children that are in that space, people who are in that space, specifically women and children. And I understand that there are men, but that's not a demographic that I can relate to in the same way. And I feel like they need brothers, they need men to be able to help them walk through some of that trauma.
Wow,
Wow,
wow. It's
wow. It's
very
very
interesting to
interesting
hear
to
just even this initial snippet of your background. I know your story is a powerful one, and it speaks volumes already just in these first few minutes about the person you are and your love and concern for people who are hurting and going through some obviously some very difficult challenges in life. So I'm very excited again that you're here and your willingness to be transparent and vulnerable and sharing your story as you are intending to do this evening. So, I'm gonna move myself out the way and put the spotlight back on you because this is your time to be a blessing to some people, and I know that you're going to do just that. So, with that said, Keeya, anytime I bring people on my show, one of the things that I always like to take the opportunity to do is have a moment of reflection as to the beginning of one story. And the reason why I do that is because I strongly believe that a lot of things that go on early on in life, good, bad, or otherwise, while it may not always make sense at that moment in time, especially when you're talking about as far back as childhood, as you get older and you begin to go through other life experiences and reflections, and ultimately navigating your way to the purpose that God has for you, you begin to sort of connect those dots. The light bulbs begin to come on, and it starts to make sense. Why I had to meet the person or persons that I've met, why I had to go through some of the experiences, again, good, bad, or otherwise, that I had to go through. It was all a building, a kind of a building blocks, if you will, of steps that had to be made in order for me to get to where I'm at. And I don't know if you've already paid attention yet to our even to our title for this evening of the show. The tools to thrive. When I think about having these conversations, those tools are oftentimes are the experiences, the storms that we go through, the challenges that we have, in order to get us to that point where we can thrive at the highest level and be not only to be blessed, but to be a blessing to other people. And so, with that said, if you would take us back to the beginning of your story, if you would, and kind of share with us what was it like
What
for
was it
you
like for you
growing up,
growing up?
fond memories that
Fond
you
memories that
have
you have
about growing up,
about
as well
growing
as if
up,
there's
as
any
well as if
particular
there's any
challenges
particular
that you'd like to
challenges that
share.
you'd like to share.
You can do that as
You can do
well.
that as well.
But again, just kind
But
of give us
again, just
that
kind of give us
backdrop
that
of where your
backdrop of
story
where your
begins.
story begins.
Absolutely. Well, and thanks for starting it off this way. Everything has and everyone has an origin story. One of the things that I must say, I want you to think of a chessboard, the darker and then the lighter, because there was pain that was along with joy. And that was intertwined. It was not all bad, but there were many times where it was absolutely horrific. And so there were moments of joy and moments of absolute horror. And so that's what most of our stories, who have been people who have experienced trauma, that's what they would agree upon. It's not all bad, but it's woven within who we are, our origin story. And so, starting off, I don't remember being born, but I was born in Madrid, Spain, in 1975, March the 5th, and I was born to a United States officer, Sergeant Robert Green Jr., and that's my father. Then I was also born to Anne Green, who is my mother, who now goes by Nezzy Shabazz. That's another story for another day. But that's who I was born to. And I had a brother who's 5 years my senior, my first best friend. We are still great friends. And he's someone whom I admire. And you'll see later on where he played a very pivotal role in my life story. And so, I grew up initially like most military brats, just kind of all over the place. But the unique part of our story is that there were times we moved. It had nothing to do with the military. It had everything to do with the relationship problems that my mom and dad had. Papa was a Rolling Stone. I think you could use your wildest imagination. It doesn't even have to be too wild to understand what that means. He had women, many. I don't know how many, but it was a lot. Enough that sometimes it would be my mother's friends and things of that nature. So it was pretty sketchy, right? And so there were times where my brother and I would wake up to their arguments. And I grew up in a home that was riddled with domestic violence. And so my father would also get drunk, get high, beat my mom, and demand physical retribution, we'll call it. Well, maybe not, maybe that's not the right word. He would demand sex of her. And so at every level, she was dehumanized. I remember nursing my mom to health. I'm 3 years old. She's got bite wounds on her wrist where her wrist have been broken. And so it was extreme domestic violence. And then there was the joy. The joy was my brother and the stories we would create. We were vivid imagination individuals, and we liked things like TV shows like The Twilight Zone and stuff like that. And there was always a cliffhanger. And I remember one time my brother came up with a story about a psychopathic hairpiece, and we saw it on The Twilight Zone, and I swore that they stole it from my brother. How? I don't know. But it's just we had such wild imaginations because we were escaping such extreme trauma. And so I remember going to about 8 different schools. So I was all the ways the new girl. I've written a book and I talk about some of the fights I would get into. And I won quite a few of them, but not everyone. I did get stumped before. And so it's just how it is, or how it was for me. But it caused me to have an imagination. I always knew I would be a writer in some form or capacity because it was my greatest escape to read. And so I like to be able to provide that escape for other people. And so I've written throughout my childhood. Things began, articles and stuff like that began to get published as a young teenager. And I worked for a newspaper for three different times. And Mr. Washington, God rest his soul, but he also, James Washington of the Dallas Weekly newspaper, he actually wrote the um, back book cover for me. And so I've had him as a mentor in my life for a very long time and at very critical times in my life.
That is
That is
awesome.
awesome.
Um, let me
Um,
first
Let
say
me
that
first say that
I appreciate your transparency and sharing again these beginning points of your story. Just right out the gate, being so vulnerable, it's so important because not because we're trying to sensationalize what's going on or anything like that, but just being able to put it out there that hey, I've had some rough patches, early on in life dealing with, like you said, dealing with your parents' um, domestic violence scenario and things like that. But then I love how you in the midst of all of that and the trauma that that must have brought forth, there was the joy side of life, and you talked about that bond with you and your brother, and you guys just being pretty much like that was your very your best friend, and between having that relationship as well as you having that creative outlet of being someone who loved to write at a very early age and having the opportunities to express yourself in writing. Again, I don't think that those things are by accident. I can't say that I know what it's like to be in a household where domestic violence is present, but I can imagine how difficult that must have been. But then to have somebody that you could kind of connect with to kind of get your mind off of what's going on, and then you combine that with the fact of you tapping into your gift early on in life about the ability to write it. And for anybody who doesn't understand what that writing process is, it's not just about my spelling and my ability to put sentences together, whatever. It's what makes writing powerful is when you're able to do it at a level that you're able to draw from personal experiences where people can sort of for a moment put themselves into your shoes to kind of get a glimpse of what that life must have been like, again, whether it was good, bad, or otherwise. But so I appreciate you having that opportunity and you sharing that, but I also don't minimize that for God to reveal to you this gift and allow you that outlet to be creative. I feel like this was that starting point for you to what was ahead. Even when we think about what you do right now, being an advocate, being a speaker, being an author, you couldn't have done those things had you not had those experiences to draw from, or I should say, you wouldn't be as effective with it. You wouldn't be as relatable to the audiences that you get a chance to be in front of. So, um, you know, let's make it no secret that God makes no mistakes in that. And going back to the title of our show, these are the tools that I talked about earlier. This is what I said: those experiences, those the early stages of revealing your gifts and your talents are the tools that will ultimately allow you to thrive. Now, again, for our listeners, we have to understand that before you can thrive, that means you have to go through something. That there has to be some bumps in the road, that there has to be some challenges along the way. And they're not going to always be comfortable. They're not going to always feel good. They're not going to always be fair. And it's not to say that you deserved it or anything like that, but God makes no mistakes. And sometimes He will allow us to go through what we go through, not even because it's about us, but more so that it's equipping us for an assignment that could be literally years ahead, that He's prepping you for, but you have to go through that stormy time in order to get to that particular level. So again, I appreciate you sharing just what you've shared so far. Very powerful and definitely, kind of sets the stage, if you will, for just how God was working out that journey for you. So thank you for that. So with that said, Keeya, as you know, we have our childhood experiences, and And as we enter into adulthood, those experiences begin to mount. They begin to add up, and we start to, again, meet new people, explore new things. Some good, some not so good. But every now and then, and I say this all the time, you live long enough. There is going to come a point in time where you get hit with something. You get hit with that life storm, that challenge in life, that it feels a little bit different. It's literally like a gut punch, if you will. It's very heavy. It's very burdensome, if you will, to the point where you might feel like you have no way out. That there's no way through this. That my money can't fix this. My education can't fix this. My connections can't fix this. It's just me and this storm staring each other in the eye, and I don't know what to do with it. And I'm feeling helpless and hopeless, and wondering, is this it? Is this it for me? Is this all I have to live for? Is this going to be my story, if you will? And so, with that said, tell us about a time that's exactly how you felt. You're facing this
Facing this
tumultuous moment,
tumultuous
this
moment,
challenging
this
time.
challenging time.
Don't know what to
Don't
do
know
with
what
it,
to
but
do with it, but
here you
here
are,
you are,
and you got to
and
figure
you got
out
to
some
figure
way to
out
work
some
it
way to
through.
work it through.
The mere
The
fact
mere
that you're here
fact that you're
today
here today
lets me know that
lets me
God
know that
worked that
God
thing
worked
out
that
for
thing
you.
out for you.
But maybe at that
But
time
maybe
you
at
had
that
your
time you
doubts,
had
you
your
had your
doubts, you had
fears,
your
you had your
fears, you had
worries.
your worries.
So with that
So with
said,
that said,
walk us through what
walk
that
us through what
experience
that
was like for
experience was
you,
like for you,
and what was
and
ultimately
what
the
was
turning
ultimately the
point
turning point
when you began to see
when you
some light
began to
at
see
the end
some
of the
light at the
tunnel
end
in
of the
that
tunnel in that
situation.
situation.
Wow, that's a tall order, and I'm going to condense it because it's a lot. So the time that the cult began, actually in my early, while I was at the age of 16, my father threatened to kill me. He was, and so he was going through withdrawal. I found going through withdrawal, and words were exchanged. He chased me into the other room where my mother was. He threatened to kill me, she said, over my dead body. And he took his fist and tried to punch me, and she jumped in the way, and it flew her into the counter, where she busted her chin and it was about the size of a lemon, the swelling. And I remember running down the stairs. There were some college students that lived below, some guys, and I told them frantically what was going on. They went and restrained my dad until the police came. That thwarted me out of the house. I'd been planning and premeditating for some years of how I would leave. I just could not figure it out. And so that was my moment. And so I took that as a break. I moved out, and for about 2 weeks, I stayed with a friend, Stacy, who allowed me to stay with her while I figured things out. And Stacy was 24. Technically, she was harboring a minor, but she took that risk because she knew it was going to bring me to some sort of safety. I was afraid to go into the juvenile home because I felt like I would be punished. I don't even know the reality of that, if they would have even accepted me, but it just felt like it would have been punishment. And so I just felt like my options were very few and far between. And I get into this in more detail in the book, where I talk about how I met a guy who, on my way to my prom on Delta Airlines, I'm flying and sitting next to him and talking about my life. He's 27, I'm 16. We exchange phone numbers. I keep in touch with him. I tell him, I just bleed all over him, tell him, which made me ding, vulnerable, red flag. And he's telling me how I can come to Atlanta and start my life over. So I go to Atlanta and I start my life over. And he was the wrong choice. It took within a couple of weeks that I got put out of his house. Another long story. And he took me to a nightclub some time before. And so I met a talent scout, basically, for artist development. And that was a gentleman who worked for Rowdy Records, uh, which was affiliated with LaFace Records. Of course, we know Babyface, and we understand who that is. And so this was Dallas Austin, and he's a Hall of Fame music producer who invited me to live with him and his friends as long as I hooked his boys up. And so at the age of 16, I found myself staring the harrowing, frightful moment in the face when I lost my innocence. I lost my innocence. And so I was going through tequila shots, weed, you name it, catching context, the whole nine, until I was out of my mind. And I was ravaged brutally by I don't know how many men, at least 12, in a room at 16. And I lived like that for almost a year. So, talking about sex trafficking, talking about basically being a sex slave, it was a little bit more like that. Talking about being that age, I felt like there was no way out. There is redemption and light at the end of the tunnel, but it took a long time to get there. I can't lie to you, Joseph. It was the most devastating part of my life. And so I've gone from victim to survivor, but now I'm a thriver. And so we're going to get into some of the keys that are necessary to open up the doors in order to thrive. And so we'll get to that in just a few. But how I got out of that situation was only by the grace of God. My brother found me. I had left my family and did not tell them where I went. I let my mother know that I moved to Atlanta. Eventually, I would move her up because I felt like if I left the drama and the trauma of our home, she would also, because I was her baby girl. I have a brother 5 years my senior. And so, with that, I was able to help her get out of the domestic violence situation while I walked directly into a violent situation. But God used it nonetheless. And so, how I got out was I lost my ever loving mind. All of the abuse, all of the trauma, all of the drugs, my mind was blown. And I regressed to that of maybe a 6-year-old child. And as I was being medicated in the Elizabeth Emergency Care Unit, plans were being made for my brother that God used to rescue me out of that situation. And that's the light at the end of the tunnel. That if you're in a situation, one of the first keys, God is your source. He is your helper. He is the one who is able to rescue. Everyone else can just assist. And they can only do it based upon his unctioning. And I don't care whether you're for God or not for God. He says the heart of the king is in my hand. I turn it whichever way I please. And that's what he did in my situation. And so, key number one, God is your source.
Wow.
Wow.
Just trying to figure out like where to even begin with this. Again, I should say first off, where we begin is thank you for your transparency. You know, it's totally relatable as far as why you felt like you needed to free yourself from your initial situation. I mean, with all the violence that's going on and everything of that nature. You know, I think anybody would understand why you felt like you needed to get out. But then, as you stated, it's like when you're going through a process, and I think our listeners can relate to this. You know, a lot of times when we go through traumatic situations, whether it's the type that you just spoke of or just some other situation, our natural instincts is, you know, to go into survival mode and figure out what do I need to do to fix this. And while that looks good on paper, one of the things that you understand that when you find yourself in a relationship with God, you understand that it's not necessary for you to fix it yourself. In fact, God will at times allow the situation to elevate to a point where He clearly knows that there's no way that you can fix it, and it's not to torture you or to send you through some grueling, you know, abuse or punishment or hurt or anything like that. It's more about saying to you in only a way that He can is at what point, regardless of what the challenge is in life, at what point are you going to rely upon me, the one who created you, the one who loves you more than anybody could ever love you, the one who can do things that no man can do for you, that no money can buy for you? When are you ready to do that? And you know, it's a part of that growth process, and it can be painful, it can be tough, it can be difficult. Again, I can't even begin to put the words what that must have been like. You know, you going into, in this case, going to Atlanta, with someone, moving in with someone that you thought had good intentions for you, and then that goes left. Then you end up shifting to another location with somebody, like you said, that's well known out here. People, oftentimes praise and acknowledge it, as being, the one, the, if you will, in that particular industry. And then, again, I'll help you, but then I'm helping you with conditions. And that again is where I like to bring it back to Christ, because see, with him, there are no conditions for him to love on you. His only, if you want to identify a condition, it's just simply to just trust me. Just give it to me and let me work it out. But there's no hidden agenda. I guess that's the best way to say it. When you're trusting in God, you don't have to worry about there being a hidden agenda. You don't have to worry about there being stipulations that would require you to sacrifice your integrity, your character, that would require you to belittle yourself or demean yourself, or to be put into uncomfortable, uncompromising situations where you just have to take whatever comes at you just to survive, just to function. And just so the mere fact that, as you stated yourself in your own words, that you had gone so far to where you were just pretty much just out of it. I mean, this could have literally had a completely opposite ending. And I think it's fair to say that that ending would have been a permanent one. That could have easily, and there have been, unfortunately, been many stories that are out there, where for women in similar situations like yourself, young ladies, and like yourself, that was the end of it, that it took their lives. So the mere fact that God spared you, says to me that he had an assignment for you. He had a purpose for you. Again, I can't imagine you being able to make any sense of what was going on at that time, but I'm sure, as I'm sure you probably relayed in your book and on many platforms and stages, that this was a part of the process. This is, as you stated earlier, it was like I had that trauma beginning moment, and then then I went into surviving it. But then it wasn't just enough for me to survive it. I now had to thrive. I had to now get to a level where, when you talk about going from that shift, and you correct me if I'm wrong or add to it, when you talk about that shift that goes from survivor to thriver, that's when, spiritually, you've elevated to a point where you can even appreciate or find joy in the pain, where you could say, not that I enjoyed going through it, but I'm joyful to know that I didn't have to do it by myself, that God was there with me all along. That's where the joy is. The joy is knowing that if I could go through that and still be here to talk about it and still be in my right mind, the joy is to know that there's nothing that's too big for God to handle for me. That he's, and that's a soothing uh thought to have in mind, especially when we start finding ourselves doubting and questioning. He's like, well, yeah, I'm going through this situation right now. I'm dealing with this circumstance over here, but what happened the last time when I was dealing with something? What did he do? And what about the time before that? And the time before that, and the time before that? Do you recall a time where he didn't show up, where he left you hanging, where he didn't provide, he didn't make a way? And for those of us who know what that relationship is like with him, you're not going to even be able to come up with one instance where he took a L, because he doesn't take the L's. He's not he's undefeated and will always be undefeated. And so, again, what you shared, just even the snippet of the story that you shared is powerful, because you only you trusting in God could have gotten you through what you got through, what you were able to get through. And then, like you stated, God divinely working it out for you and your brother to connect, to reunite, for him to be able to find you, and to be the one that helps to begin that process of pulling you out and starting you on a new path of life. Which, again, you're welcome to elaborate on that if you would. But again, thank you for sharing what you have. That's powerful. And unfortunately, as you were sharing the story, I automatically started to think about the climate that we're in right now. When we think about some of the headlines of similar stories, girl goes out, she leaves home, somebody presents opportunity, life-changing opportunity. You're going to be famous, you're going to be a star, just come with me. And going through some old crazy off the wall type stuff at such a young age. But even if you weren't at a young age, it would still be challenging and horrific in some instances to have to go through that, thinking that you're being promised this, this whole fame and life of happiness forever, only to find out that it was none of that. It was all just something that was being told to, again, to take advantage, to manipulate, to play off of what was already a vulnerable moment in life for their own self benefit, for their own self purposes. And so again, for you to be a not just a survivor but a thriver of that, again, speaks volumes as to the assignment that God had for you. So again, I appreciate that. I don't know if you wanted to if you had any response to that, any more to your story, but before I move forward.
I there's one part of it that I do want to, because that's one of the things I did not mention is I was not just told to hook the boys up, but I was told, would you like to be on the stage? Would you like, and you're talking about this is the producer for TLC. Okay. I'm 16 years old. Heck yeah. I want to be on stage. You want to be in a music video. The music video is still playing on YouTube. Highly placed monsters. Let's get in AKED and the remix. And so I got Kevin Wales, who manages Another Bad Creation. I got Dallas Austin, who has his group, but he's got up and coming stars that he's working with, Usher and all these different people. And I'm like, of course I want a piece of that action, because I'm thinking I'm going to get paid. I'm going to get money. I mean, I'm going to be able to go to school. Like I'm thinking my life is about, and it changed just for the worse. And so I identify, my heart goes out to the young lady who thinks I'm going to be a model. They said I'm going to do this. They said I'm going to do that. They feed into and manipulate everything it is you think you want to do. Then they present it like it's yours. Then they snatch it. Sometimes you might be like Cassie, Diddy's sex slave, who got all the deals and became a model, but at what price? At what price? It's better to not gain the world and keep your soul. But you're going to lose your soul the moment that you deal with these devils. They operate like devils. Are they redeemable? Yes, I believe so, if they repent. But if they don't, they're operating through the spirit of darkness. And so my heart goes out to the young people who are being abused, because it is a crime, by the way. It's a crime to be a grown man and sleep with a 16-year-old girl. That is a crime. Sex trafficking is a crime against humanity. It is heinous. And so whether you're molesting, sexing, whatever you're doing to young people, there's enough old people who don't have any rules and respect for themselves. Why you got to go rob the cradle? Why you have that type of desire? And so we have to ask ourselves these things, but that's another topic for another day. But the reality is, my heart goes out to the young lady with low self-esteem. If she was like me, my dad did not encourage me and call me beautiful and those different things that build up who you are as a budding young woman. And so those who did wanted to extract and take that from me. And so I felt so worthless and like nothing. And I did battle with suicidal ideation. I did have attempts on my life as well that I took, but they just didn't come to fruition because God had a plan. And so back to that thriving, you never know when you're going to take that leap into thriving. It's a process. It happens over years. But sometimes I just wake up and I'm like, I'm actually thriving. These are the days I prayed for, as imperfect as they are. Yeah.
So it's fair to
So it's
say
fair to
that
say that
a lot of these things that we hear on TV about the entertainment industry and things of that nature, that there's more truth to it than it is not truth.
not truth.
The
The
manipulation,
manipulation,
like you said, the
like
price
you
that
said,
you're
the
having to
price that
pay
you're
for
having to pay for
fame and things of
fame
that
and things of
nature.
that nature.
That it's not an
It's not
exaggeration
an
when you hear a lot of
exaggeration
these
when you hear a lot
stories.
of these stories.
And your understanding has to be that people literally sell their souls for the fame and for the money. And so once they do that, they have to offer sacrifices. So they have to hurt you. They have to harm you. In some cases, kill you. And this is deeper than we understand. This is deeper than we understand. And so, but it's time to get into the underbelly of it so you can understand how to protect your families and build safer communities. And you do that by learning that, yes, it is real. This is not conspiracy theory. This is not entertainment. Okay. And it's not just the music industry, it's not just Hollywood. This is the whole entire world. Okay. So every industry, I'm saying church, I'm saying it's happening everywhere. So let's kick it out that, oh, it's just the music industry. Oh, it's just the black artists. It's just, no, it's everybody. Everyone is
Mm-hmm.
involved. For it to become a $150 billion crime um, producer, it would have to have many more people, women and men, involved in it for it to be real
Yeah.
and for it to have the type of impact that it does. And so, yes, you can believe it. Now, I'm sure there's some sensationalists out there who are just trying to make a buck. And it's like, ooh, that's the hot button topic. So let's make some money off of it and let's get these actors. I'm sure there's some idiots out there like that. I'm not one of
Mm-hmm.
them.
Gotcha.
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 And
And
how am I trying to say this? I think it's well, I should say one of the things that I appreciate as you've been talking about sex trafficking is that you've given some context as to what the meaning of sex trafficking really is. Because as you stated, for those of us who don't really know much about it, our vision of it is, you know, some young girl walking down the street, a van pulls up, they grab her up, snatch her in the van, take her away somewhere, and she's in a house with 10, 15, 20 other girls, and they're sold out to wealthy men to do this or that. But like I said, you gave it a different perspective. You said that this is not something that just happens in one particular industry. You even said that sex trafficking can even make its way into the church in some instances. So and for our listeners, that's not a something that we're putting out there to suggest that church isn't a safe place. It's just that sex trafficking does not have any limitations, if you will, as to where it can take place. We would still be the first to say to you that when it comes to dealing with whatever challenge in life, whether you're talking about sex trafficking or what have you, that God is still the relationship that you want to have and the one that you want to be your advocate for you to be able to navigate through those storms. But it's just more about not allowing yourself to get to a point where the weight, the burden, the pressure of life is so heavy that you again that you feel this need, you feel compelled to just try to take it all on by yourself because as I said earlier, it's natural for us to want to do that. And God didn't necessarily make us to be weak people, but He did place limitations on us. That there are certain things that we can do up to a point, but then there's things that only He can do. And when you keep it in that perspective, when you understand it in that way, it's then that you truly can grasp as to why everything wasn't meant for us to just do by ourselves. God, in addition to standing on love, He stands on relationship, and He gives us discernment through that relationship with Him. He can give us the discernment to help us be able to navigate challenging situations or to be able to identify the red flags when they pop up and things of that nature. So I'm sorry, were you saying something, Keeya? I wasn't able to hear you. If your mic is muted. I'm sorry, Keeya, your mic is muted. Thank you to my listeners for tuning in to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. We're having a minor technical difficulty. Keeya, your mic is muted. If you want to come off to say something. This has been a very powerful conversation that we're having this evening. So I certainly do appreciate Keeya being so open with us and educating us at the same time about the true meaning of sex trafficking and how it can impact, but also sharing with us what it takes for us to be able to overcome, what it takes for us to be able to have that breakthrough moment, if you will, in dealing with something as traumatic as this. It could happen to anybody. God forbid that you know someone or that you personally have had to experience something like this. But the reality is that some people go through situations like this unknowingly trusting people that they thought were safe to trust, only to find out that that was not the case. So, that said, these things can happen, but God is able. God is a way maker. He's a provider, and he can get us through difficult times, even something as severe, as traumatic, as tragic as sex trafficking. So again, I appreciate our guest Keeya this evening for sharing as she has, so openly, so vulnerably, and just again giving us some insight as to um, how we need to properly, in a healthy and productive way, how do we need to navigate the pathway to dealing with our various challenges and storms of life, and not allowing ourselves to just kind of operating off of emotions only, and going into those battles alone, because spiritual warfare is real. And everything that we've discussed tonight, these are also examples of spiritual warfare battles. um, some parts of those spiritual warfare battles include people and things that you can see, and then some of them you can't see, but they're nevertheless there. Forces, things of that nature that are looking to destroy, to take out, to do anything that is opposite of what God is about. So, um, again, this has been an exciting time. And Keeya looks like she's back with us. Keeya, if your mic is muted, I think we're up. She's navigating through.
Navigating through.
All right, we
All
got you
right,
back,
we got
Keeya.
you back here.
Oh,
All right,
yes.
All right,
that's okay.
that's
Wow.
That's
okay.
okay.
That's okay.
So just was
So
sharing with
just
the
I was
audience
sharing
while
with
you
the
were working
audience
through
while you were
your
working through your
your
through
technical
your
issues that
technical issues that
this story has been
this story has been
powerful, and you're
powerful,
really
and you're really
educating us about
educating us about
not only
not
about
only
what the
about what
challenges of
the
sex
challenges of sex
trafficking and the traumas
trafficking
that
and the
come with
traumas
it,
that come with it,
but on a bigger
but on a
level,
bigger level,
how we have to
how we have
tackle
to
our
tackle
storms of
our
like,
storms of
and
life,
who we have to
and who we have to look to
to be able to
to
overcome
be able
those
to
challenges.
overcome those
So,
challenges. So,
which is ultimately the
which is
message that we
ultimately the
want our
message that we
listeners
want
to
our listeners to
understand.
understand.
Sex trafficking
Sex
just may happen
trafficking
to be
just
the
may happen to be
subject of
the subject
conversation
of
for this evening,
conversation
as
for this
far as
evening, as
the
far as
trauma
the
itself.
trauma itself.
But the bigger
But the
picture,
bigger picture,
the ultimate
the
source is
ultimate
God
source is
Himself,
God Himself,
and that's what we want to
and
make
that's what
sure
we want to make sure
everybody's taken
everybody's
away
taken away
from this
from
conversation
this
this evening.
conversation
So,
this evening. So,
Absolutely. I underscore that wholeheartedly. Really, you said it all. God is our only source. And so, um, one of the questions that I often get in ministry is, why do bad things happen to good people? Because the devil and the fall of man. That's why. You could blame the devil for that. That's why. That's why we have the pain and suffering that we have. And people just don't get it twisted. It's not God. God is not this stoic, mean character. They're like, oh, yeah, but he killed people who were in the Bible days. There's a whole lot more to that story. I would encourage you to deep dive for yourself and learn why and what was happening, and how there were gene editing and corruption of humanity. And so the hybrids and those that were fallen angels, and I know this is a big topic, try to have children with the daughters of men. And this is where evil comes into play, and God killing off these races of hybrids that were bastardized. It was the devil trying to play God. And so there's so much more. Before you go say that God is responsible for evil, he's not. He's not. But he has conquered death, hell, and the grave, and evil with it.
absolutely,
absolutely,
absolutely.
absolutely.
So
So,
Keeya, if you
Kia,
would,
um,
because I want to kind
because
of
I want
bring
to
your
kind of bring your
story
story
kind of
kind of
to full circle, if you will.
if you will.
So
So
you make it,
you
you find
make it,
yourself, I
you
should
find
say,
yourself, I should
in a
say, in a
hospital.
hospital.
You're being
You're being
treated.
treated.
You said your
You
brother has
said your
been
brother's been
notified
notified
as to where
as
you
to where
are.
you are.
kind of take us
kind of take
through
us
your
through
brother
your
finding
brother
you and you
finding you and you
ultimately kind
ultimately
of getting out of this
kind of getting
situation
out of
where
this
you begin
situation where
to
you
get into
begin
that
to
next
get into that
level
next
of
level
life as God would have for you
of life
to
as
walk
God
on?
would have for
Like
you
how
to
how
walk
does this
on.
all turn
Like
out in the
how
end?
does this all turn out in the end?
Well, I mean, in the end, I'm the end result, and that end is not even finished. But I'll say that when I was in the Elizabeth Emergency Care Unit in Elizabeth, New Jersey, on the 13th floor in the psych ward, and my brother and his wife at the time came to my aid. Um, I had regressed to that of a 6 or 7 year old child. I was on Risperdal, Haldol, all these debilitating mental health medications. I was not myself, at times slobbering. I mean, I was in a regressed state. And then we found St. John's wort, which was a natural herb and remedy. And so I ended up switching off onto that and really just healing by being away from all the toxicity. Really, that's what it took. And immersing myself into, you could say, church culture, but I really immersed myself into God. I immersed myself imperfectly. I just gave myself as an offering that, Lord, if you can use anyone, you can use me. How you'll use me, I don't know. I didn't have a very high understanding of who I was. And then I began to find out, oh, I'm a daughter. I'm a daughter of the King, the Most High. Yeah, that's who I am. And it began to transform my life over time. And it's like the woman in John where, and she could in no wise lift herself up. I had to say that love lifted me. Christ himself, he lifted me out of that state and transformed me over time. That's why you see what you see today. And what you see today is imperfect. And what you see today is not, who you should follow. Follow me as I follow Christ. You really want to follow Christ first. Because I have scars. I've got battle scars. We battle with things. I haven't overcome every single area. I am overcoming. I am an overcomer prophetically, futuristically. But I'm like you. I am overcoming. I like to eat. I like to eat too much. I'm overcoming that. You know what I'm saying? I have fleshly desires that I have to keep at bay because when you've been abused that way, things can be off the chain. All right. When you've been abused that way, the enemy will always come in that door and try to amplify things so that he can keep you bound and keep you in sin. But what you see today, that journey of thriving, that happened and is still happening. I'm evolving it in a way to do ultimately what I want and every believer should want, which is to be perfected in Christ. And that will happen after we leave here and before Christ returns at some point. That marriage will take place. And then we will be like him and we'll see him as he is. But right now, your girl is struggling. I'm just here thankful to be on the planet. Okay. All right.
I appreciate you
I
sharing that
appreciate you sharing that.
because I think it's important for people to understand that as you are going through that healing process, if you will, going through your bounce back, that it's not an overnight fix, and that in fact, depending upon the level of trauma, depending upon the level of challenge that you've gone through, you could be talking years of that evolving process. But that said,
That said,
don't don't
don't
let that
don't
be
let that be
a
a
disappointment. Don't let
disappointment.
that
Don't let
be
that
something
be
that you see
something
as
that
a
you see as
failure
a
because
failure because
it's not
it's
happening as
not
quickly
happening
as
as
you
quickly
thought it
as you
should.
thought it should.
It's This is not
This is
something that
not
you're
something that
supposed
you're
to
supposed to
get over.
get over.
It's more
It's
so
more
it's a
so
process.
it's a process.
It's an evolution.
It's an
It's
evolution.
a
It's a
healing takes
healing
time.
takes time.
And might I
And
add,
And
yes,
yes,
and sorry to interrupt, but might I add, I needed to go through counseling and
hmm
lots of therapy over the course of years. I needed to meditate on the word and let it work on me. This takes years. And so you're not a failure if you get to the place to where you're out of the situation, but you feel like the situation is not out of you. You feel like you're just still worthless. You're not worthless, and it's going to take some time. Be careful with yourself, my baby. Be careful with yourself and love yourself. And if you don't know how to love yourself, receive the love of Christ because he does it perfectly.
hmm absolutely.
absolutely.
And just
And
remembering
just
as you shared the enemy is still looking to attack, even when you have as incredible of a recovery moment that you had, to be able to come from the lowest point in life and to be able to be at the place that you are today. Not only does it take time, but also for our listeners, understand that when the enemy has thrown some stuff at you and you have somehow been able to survive it all through your connection with Christ, that we definitely don't want to minimize that. He's not happy with that. He's not pleased. And don't think for 1 minute that just because you are on the come up, so to speak, you're on the thrive up, that he's just going to go away and let that go. If anything, he's about to ramp it up. He's about to come even harder, even stronger. And again, you might be saying to yourself, this
That
is
part.
not fair.
This is not fair.
I mean, I
This,
done went through all of this. I survived it by the grace and mercy of God. And he still won't leave me alone. The enemy still won't leave me alone. He won't. He won't.
This is his job.
And then
it's his job.
It's his job.
That's the best way to say it. It is his job.
It is his
he
job.
is not going to let up. He's not going to leave it
He's not going to
alone.
leave it alone.
And then he sees you
then
growing
he
in
sees you growing in
Christ.
Christ.
He sees you
He sees
understanding
you
your
understanding
purpose.
your purpose.
He sees
He sees you
identifying your worth
identifying
and
your worth
value.
and your value.
You're just increasing the angry level
for
him.
Game on.
For him.
Right.
Game is on.
Game
And
is
he's
on.
Gonna get more
he's going to get more strategic.
He knows you
He
better
knows
than
you better than you know you.
He knows
He knows
that
that
soft spot,
spot,
the thing that tempts you the
most,
the things that
the
keep
things
you
that
up at
keep
night.
you up at night.
And he's gonna
And
play
he's
on
going to
that,
play on that, play on that.
which is why God's
Which is why God's word tells us that we have to put on that full armor.
Right.
We have to recognize.
We have to recognize that
Every day.
spiritual warfare is very real.
It's an
everyday,
24/7 event. It doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop.
And so you just got to be able to battle through that. But again, you don't have to do it by yourself.
You
have
you're
the
never
ultimate
alone.
king
that's with you.
Right.
And he can't be
And
defeated.
he can't be defeated.
So if
If
you
you
on his
if
side,
you with him,
you're not gonna
you're
lose.
not going to lose.
that doesn't mean that times won't get
challenging.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that there won't be rough moments
or
anything
like that.
But it won't destroy you.
It won't destroy
It
you.
won't take
That's
you
right.
out.
It won't take you
You
out.
will be able
You
to
will
handle
be able
it.
to handle it.
Not on your
Amen.
strength,
Not
but on his strength.
but on his strength.
That's the key thing.
That's the key thing. So,
Right.
Yes.
yes.
So
This is wonderful.
again,
Again,
appreciate you sharing
sharing
that
as you have. This is awesome.
I'm so glad to be here, and I'm so glad for your passion, and that you would highlight this subject matter. It's touchy, but I'm grateful for you. I just have to say that, my brother.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate that.
And
in conversations like this, whether I'm doing it or someone else doing it on another platform,
we need to have these
difficult conversations.
We need to have the
conversations about the stuff
that makes us
uncomfortable.
Because that's
the part of growth.
Spiritual growth
is
to be able to
go through those difficult,
challenging,
tough moments and times.
But knowing in the end, there's an end point to it that's going to be far greater, far better
than what we thought was
a moment of discomfort, a moment of inconvenience. When you see how God moves, that stuff doesn't bother you
the way it used to before you were able to see how God moves.
Right.
So
that's the connection that we're trying to make here.
Because we understand that
everybody's not connected.
Yeah.
And even those of us who are, we can always do better.
We can always strengthen the connection.
So
right.
there's a win-win for everybody, regardless of where you are in your
spiritual journey.
So that's why
I want to make sure we're highlighting
stories like this,
conversations like this
allows us
the opportunity for God to speak to us
and
feel His presence
to truly
know how He operates and why it's so critical for us to be in relationship with Him.
So yes. So
Keeya,
we talked about some very heavy subject matter today. And sometimes
storms are like that.
But then there are other times storms are just at the level of just life-lifing. Just some casual nuances that we have to deal with, whether it's car trouble, somebody who got on our nerves at work, or whatever's going on, an unexpected financial expense. It could be a
variety of different things.
Right.
A
stub my toe on the end of that bed. That hurt my... it could be a number of different things. But what I'm curious
But
to
what
know
I'm
from
curious
you
to know
is
from you is
when you do
when
find
you
yourself
do find
facing
yourself
challenging
facing
times,
challenging times,
big stuff,
big stuff,
doesn't
little stuff
matter.
doesn't matter.
What is it you
What is it you
personally like to
personally like
do
to
that's kind of
do
sort of
that's
your
kind of sort of your
routine,
routine,
your regiment
your
that
regiment
helps you
that
process
helps you
dealing with
process
challenging
dealing with
times,
challenging
but do
times,
it in a healthy
but
and
do it in a
productive
healthy and
way,
productive
where
way,
in the end
where
you're
in
able
the
to
end you're able
come up
to
with
come up with
a game
a
plan as
game
to how do
plan
I
as
need
to
to
how
work
do I need
through
to
this
work
particular
through this
situation.
particular
What does that
situation.
look like for
What does that
you?
look like for you?
This is going to sound churchy, but I go to church. I have Pastor G. Craig Lewis as my pastor, Adamant Believers Council, and so in X Ministry. So I have someone who already understands, who's already trained in the Word of God to break down these nuances to apply it to your everyday life. How you stop smoking black and milds, how how you get your flesh under control. And he uses the Word of God. The Word of God is powerful, more powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, able to divide. Let me tell you, don't get me started, because it's the Word that does it. That is not an exaggeration. And we need preachers, we need teachers to break it down and show us how to apply it to everyday life. So when I wake up in the morning and I stub my toe, I don't have a hissy fit. I just attend to the toe. I don't have to cuss 50,000 cuss words. I just tend to the toe because it's hurting. Okay. But how do I apply things to my life when no one's looking and no one's around? And so going to service and being in community helps, because now I've got accountability. And then when they're not around, I've had the expression of the Word of God being walked out in my life, that now I can get character built and integrity. So behind the scenes, I'm the same person and not somebody else. That don't mean that I won't smoke a black and mild every now and then. It just means that I'm going to be delivered, and I'm being delivered of these things. And so I'm just trying to put it in perspective. I pray. I cry out to God, even in the midst sometimes of sin that's present at times. You can cry out and say, God, I'm convicted. I don't need to stay this way. I don't mean to stay this way. I need you. I feel this. This is not going to have a hold of me anymore like it did before. And you got to talk to the devil and say, you're not going to do this to me again and again. I'm not someone that you can just use as your target. Yeah, you got me. Yeah, I'm smoking this black and mild. Yeah, I'm drinking this. Yeah, I've fallen into sexual sin, whatever your situation may be. But I'm not going to stay there. I'm going to let the Word work on me. And I would encourage you, find a Bible believing church. And all churches are not Bible believing. It's a whole nother thing to find churches that are not mixed with paganism, but that's a whole nother topic for another day. Find one that is based on the Word and you see it operating, and you know where the money goes, and you know that the pastor is not sleeping around, or the pastor's wife ain't sleeping around, because it comes all kind of different directions. But you can find that out because character comes out. You hear by the way people talk how they live. The contents of your heart come out and it tells on you. And so yeah, it's that simple. I let church be the environment that teaches me how to live behind the scenes.
I appreciate that.
Appreciate that.
You know,
You know,
it is so
it is so
critical for you to
critical
have
for
that
you to have that
circle
circle.
of people around you, that, and it doesn't have to be a big circle, for people who are trying to figure out, like, how do I build this circle? I mean, I've even had that conversation with myself, like, how do you make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people, that you're um, that you got people who genuinely have your best interest at heart, people who will keep it real with you, that when you go to them with whatever challenge that you have, that they're not going to tell you what you want to hear, they're going to tell you what you need to hear, and do it from a place that is based on godly principles. That's what you want your circle
You
to
want
look
your
like.
circle
And
to look
so
like. And so
when you have
when
that
you
in
have
your
that
life,
in your life,
it doesn't
it
matter
doesn't matter
when the
when
storm
the
comes.
storm comes.
You're
You're
already
already
getting yourself
getting yourself
armored up,
armored up,
covered,
covered,
if you will,
if you will,
on a day-to-day
on a
basis, like
day-to-day
this is your
basis, like this is
norm,
your
because
norm,
because I
I
have that
I
covering,
have that covering,
I have that
I have that
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 nucleus
nucleus
of people,
of people,
God-fearing men and
God-fearing men
women
and women
who, again, I
who,
can trust
again,
with
I
my
can trust
truth,
with my truth,
and they won't use
and
it
they
as
won't
something to
use it
throw
as
in my
something to
face or
throw
to
in my
judge
face or to
me,
judge me,
Right.
but allow me to make
would
the
allow me to
connection
make the
between
connection
what I'm
between
going through
what
and
I'm
what
going
God
through and
says
what God
about it.
says about it.
Right.
And so
And they
when you
might
have
not
So
that
be
when
a
you
kind of
part
have
of
that
your
approach,
kind of
church.
approach,
that's true.
that's
They don't
true.
even have
They
to be
might
a
don't
be
part
even
of your
have to be a
family
church.
part of your
members,
church.
someone who can hold you accountable. It might be just people that you've known that are not necessarily at your church. That's just one of the ways. But it's all about community and accountability. But don't try to do it by yourself.
No,
Don't try to think
no.
you're going to do
No.
it by yourself.
Yeah, and don't, and a
And
lot of
don't
times
and a
people
lot
run
of
into
times
that
people run into that
challenge of doing it by
challenge of doing
themselves
it by
because
themselves because
I don't want people
I
to
don't want people
know
to know
that
Shame.
I'm
That's
that
not
called
I'm
shame.
not
perfect,
perfect,
that I don't have
Right.
it
that I don't
always
have it
figured out,
always figured out.
and that
And
especially
That
can
you're
happen.
especially
human.
can happen.
Yes, yes,
Yes, yes.
and that can
And
especially
that can
happen when
especially
you're that
happen when you're that
person
person
who people
who
normally
people
go
normally
to
go to
for that
for that
encouragement, for that
encouragement, for that
uplifting, for
uplifting,
that
for that
advisement. Like you
advisement.
almost
Like
feel
you
like
almost feel like
if I show any
if I show any
vulnerability or
vulnerability or
shortcomings or
shortcomings
anything like
or
that,
anything like
then I'm
that,
gonna be a
then I'm gonna be a
disappointment.
disappointment.
They won't be able to
They won't be
depend
able to
upon me
depend upon
anymore.
me anymore.
But as I've said
But
this
as I've
many
said
times
this many
before,
times before,
even the encourager
even the
needs to be
encourager needs to be
encouraged.
encouraged.
Right.
So
Especially
yes,
yes, yes.
because as the
because of
encourager, a
Because as
how
an
lot of
much
times you
encourager, a
take
lot of
on
we
times
that
you
pour
weight.
take on
out.
that weight.
Yes, and
You,
how
Yes,
much
you
you
look
pour
like you
how
out.
know
much you
something
pour out.
about that.
I've had my
I've
battles
had
with
my
that.
battles with that.
I've
Right.
had my
I've
battles
had
with
my
that,
battles with that,
and to a fault.
and to a fault.
Right.
Where
Where
sometimes
sometimes
you can
you can
care
care
and pour
and
into
pour into
everybody else,
everybody else,
but when it's your
but when it's your
turn,
turn,
you're
you're
neglectful of you.
neglectful of you.
And something my
And something my
stepdad used to
stepdad
say,
used to
and I've
say,
mentioned
and
this
I've
on a
mentioned
number
this
of
on a number of
shows,
shows,
and to
and
individuals
to
personally,
individuals personally,
is that he
is
talked
that
about the
he talked about
concept
the
of healthy
concept of healthy
selfishness.
selfishness.
I like that.
Sometimes you got
Sometimes
to
you
be
got to be
selfish for you,
selfish for you.
and it could
Can
just be
you
something
send
as
that to
simple
me?
as
I need that. Healthy
healthy
selfishness.
Healthy
selfishness.
selfishness.
And sometimes
And
healthy
sometimes healthy
selfishness is nothing
selfishness
more
is
than
nothing
just you
more
being
than
able to
just you
tell
being able to
somebody
tell somebody
no
no.
No.
and be okay with that.
Be okay
Period.
with that.
I'm not worried about how
I'm
you
not worried about
feel,
how
what you
you
think
feel, what
about
you think
it,
about
or
it,
anything.
or anything.
No.
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 Can you?
Mm.
Can you?
Can you?
No.
Can you? No.
Are you available to?
Are you
No.
available to? No.
No. I'm going to
Sometimes
start
that's
practicing that.
necessary.
I'm just going to get up in the morning.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
No, God,
No.
not you.
No.
Right.
Right.
You gotta have to say
You gotta
who
have
to
to
say
say
no
who to
to,
say no to,
Right.
and when it's
and
important to
when
say
it's
no,
important to say no,
and it's especially
and it's
important to say
especially
no,
important to
especially
say
if
no,
you're trying
especially
to
if you're trying
thrive,
to thrive,
because that's where
because
your
that's where
peace
your peace
it can be
it can be
regulated, can be
regulated, can be
maintained.
maintained.
Because if you don't say
Because
no
if you don't
enough,
say no enough,
if you allow
if you
yourself to
allow
just be
yourself
kind
to
of
just be
handled
kind of
any old kind
handled
of
any old
way,
kind of way,
because
Yeah.
remember we've
because
been
remember
talking
we've
about
been
being
talking about
handled.
being handled.
Right.
We've been focused
We've
on
been
a lot
focused
about
on
the
a lot
sexual
about the
concept
sexual
of it,
concept of it,
but that's not the
but that's
only
not the
type of
only type
way
of
you can be
way you
handled.
can be handled.
People
That's
can take
right.
your
People can
kindness
take
for
your
weakness,
kindness
and
for
you can be
weakness,
handled
and you
that
can be
Yes.
way.
handled that way.
Yes.
People can,
People can,
not be
not be
considerate that you
considerate
have
that
a
you have
life and
a
other
life
things
and
to
other
do,
things to do,
other
other
concerns, and they'll try to
concerns, and
make
they'll
their
try to make
stuff
their stuff
be more of a
be
priority
more of a
over your
priority
stuff.
over your stuff.
So
Right.
who said
So who
that your
said
stuff
that
wasn't
your stuff
important,
wasn't important,
or that your
No.
or
time
that
isn't
your time
valued?
isn't
So
valued? So
no,
no.
No.
and that's what a
And that's
community
what the
can do for
community
you.
can do for you.
Right.
Can sometimes when you
Sometimes
forget,
when you forget,
they can say to you,
they
you
can
know
say to you,
what,
you know
Keeya,
what, Keeya,
you just need to
you
go
just
sit
need to go
down,
sit down,
relax,
relax,
um,
um,
and just
Take a
and
day
just
off.
take a day
quick
off,
take a day off,
and don't be
and don't
and
be
don't
and don't
apologize for it.
apologize for it.
Right.
This is for your
This is
peace.
for your
This is for
peace. This is for
your
your
sanity.
sanity.
This is for
Right.
you to have
This
an
is for you to
opportunity
have an
to
opportunity to
refresh.
refresh.
Because as the
Because
cliche
the
statement is
cliche
out there,
statement is out
you
there,
can't pour
you
from an
can't
empty
pour
cup.
from an empty cup.
You can't. And you can't eat
You
from an
know.
empty plate.
You can't eat from an
You
empty
can't eat
plate.
from an empty plate.
You
And
know,
how can you
And
walk
how
in
can you
God's
walk in
purpose
God's
that
purpose
He has for your
that He has
life
for your life
if you have no
if you
energy?
have no energy?
You just broke
you just
down.
broke down.
tapped out.
You tapped out.
No.
So
You know, it's something else, Joseph. I'm rebranding. I'm in the process of rebranding. So I'm going from Keeya Vawar to Hello Peace because I want the focus to be off of me. I want to build a community of believers who say hello to peace. How do you get a hold of peace? That's man, woman, boy, and girl. We all need peace. And one of the first ways to thrive after you recognize who God is and you establish your boundaries so that you can say no to those who are draining you and who are on you like vampires is to say yes to peace. And what does that look like, Joseph? That looks like taking your schedule. And I know in America, we think you got to be busy, busy, hurry, hurry, hurry. No, less is more. Less is more. Focus on doing one thing well before you move on to the next thing. And you can tell, even sometimes I got to tell no, I'm not going to overextend myself for me, not even for me. I'm not going to suck up all my capacity with every little thing I want to do. That's called a double-minded person. And that says that they'll be unstable in all of their ways. And so I have to say hello to peace. And I want a community of people who want the same. And so we're rebranding and all of that you'll see later. But hello, peace. I just want to be reintroduced to peace. And I was encouraged by a song by Todd Galbraith that says, fear is not my future. And so he says, hello, peace, hello, joy, hello, love. I haven't seen you in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And how many people can relate to that?
Plenty.
And so, yeah, I'm going to reintroduce instrumentally some people to peace. And I'm looking for a tribe of people who will do the same thing, who will introduce people to peace. Because I'm not a one-woman show. I can't do this by myself. I need to link arms with like-minded people who say, hello to peace. That's our community. That's what we do. What you do, peace.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and that's what's so critical about what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah, because you came from a place of trauma.
Yes.
It was a community. But there was no peace there.
No peace.
But you had to go
through that.
In order to even be in the rebranding moment that you're in right now, to introduce people to say, I was on the right track in terms of the community part, but I left the peace part out. And now I'm trying to create a community that's about the peace. That's about the purpose.
Yes.
That's about pouring into me with the right stuff. The godly stuff. Not trying to pour drugs and alcohol into me. Or anything else into me that's going to have me distorted out of my mind. But to pour into me in a way that strengthens me, that grows me, that keeps me accountable, that keeps me focused and locked in on the big picture, and not sweating the small stuff. That's the community of peace that I'm seeking. That's what I'm hearing you talking about building. But you couldn't even have this vision had you not gone through that painful time. Because you now have an appreciation for what real peace looks like.
Yes. And I know what peace is not.
So now you know what it's not.
You know what it's not.
Right.
So
that's a mouthful.
Great.
I have nothing more. I think we've emptied out. We can talk some more, but I feel like the main points of thriving and how to do it, we were able to make this collaboration and say hello to peace and learn how to thrive. What a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. So with that said,
Keeya,
if you had a chance,
when you think about all the experiences of life that you've had, highs and the lows,
you had a chance to sit across the table from younger Keeya. Keeya who felt like she needed to run away from all of the stuff that was going on, trying to find this place of joy and happiness and love and acceptance and
safety,
but yet found herself in the complete opposite of that. What would you say to her that you feel like could have been beneficial for her young Keeya to know when she was scared and didn't know what to do? She just knew she needed to get away. She knew she needed to get out, but she didn't quite know how to navigate that. Or taking into consideration our listeners this evening, we may have some people that are tuning in that are currently going through or been through a lot of what you talked about tonight, and they're struggling trying to figure out how do I get on that pathway to thrive. What would you say to
What would
younger
you say to
Keeya?
younger Keeya?
What would you say
What
to
would
our
you say
listeners
to our
that are
listeners that are
dealing with similar
dealing with similar
situations right now,
situations
like
right now,
what you
like
talked
what you
about,
talked about,
and they're looking for
and they're
that
looking for that
those first
starting, those
steps
first steps
in order to
in order
get
to
on that
get on
recovery
that
to
recovery to
thrive?
thrive?
First of all, I would have told young Keeya, look at the safest people around you and go to them.
Mm.
Don't go to the people you got to figure out if they're safe or not. Go directly to your church. Go to those people, at least you know how they live. If I would have chosen a different community, I believe that the outcome might have been different. And I would say, trust God, because that's something I didn't do. I didn't trust him. I was just terrified, and I just made all these decisions, and I didn't take a step back. So I would to my younger self, step back, pray, ask God for direction, and see where he leads you.
Love that. Love
Love
that.
that. Love that.
It's simple,
It's
but it's
simple, but
packed
it's packed
full of
full
key
of
nuggets
key
that you can
nuggets that you
use
can use
if you're trying to
if
figure
you're
out
trying
those
to figure
first
out those
steps to
first
take.
steps to take.
Keeya made it
Keeya
simple and
made it
plain
simple and
as it
plain
can be,
as it can be,
something you can apply
something you
right
can apply
now.
right now.
So I appreciate
So I
you doing
appreciate
that.
you doing that.
Keeya, this has
Keeya, this
been
has been
a
a
phenomenal time
phenomenal
with you.
time with you.
And as you
And as
shared,
you
we could
shared,
probably
we could probably
continue talking for
continue
hours
talking for hours
upon
And with
hours.
you
upon
also.
hours. Just
Because there's so
because
much
there's
to
so much to
unpack,
unpack,
not just in your
not just in
story,
your
but
story,
just
but just
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 understanding what it
understanding
takes
what it
to
takes to
as our title
as
says,
our
the
title says,
tools
the
to
tools
thrive.
to thrive.
Truly understanding
Truly
what your
understanding what your
toolbox looks like,
toolbox looks
and
like,
and
and
how to
how
utilize
to
those tools in a
utilize those
way
tools in a way
that builds you a
that builds
life
you a life
that is pleasing
that
to
is
God,
pleasing
that
to God,
has
that
you in a
has you in
walk
a walk
that is in
that is in
alignment with
alignment
what He
with what
created
He
you to be.
created you to be.
Right.
And so
And so
I can't say
I can't
enough
say enough
how appreciative
how
I am of
appreciative I am
you
of you
sharing as you've
sharing as you've
shared,
shared, blessing
blessing our
me, blessing our
listeners.
listeners.
And do know
And
that
do
you are
know that
welcome
you are welcome
anytime to come back
anytime
on
to
the
come back on the
broadcast
broadcast.
have future
Have future
conversations about
conversations about
again a
again
multitude
a
of
multitude
conversations
of
that I'm sure we
conversations
could
I'm sure
have
we can have just from
just what we talked
just what we
about in this
talked
short
about in
time
this short
together.
time together.
I think we need to talk about tools and what's in the toolkit.
The
Yeah,
toolkit.
the toolkit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm honored. I'm honored to be a part of your show. I'm honored that your listening audience, you guys rock. The fact that you are tuning in and learning from this wonderful man of God. Continue to tune in. See all the guests that he has here for you. This is for your edification. And so keep faithful and loyal to this man of God. But I'm just grateful to be here, and I would love to come back.
I appreciate that, and I thank you for your kind
words.
But as is
customary
on the Blessings in the Streets podcast,
before we let you go,
we want to take an
we want to take an
opportunity
opportunity
to
to celebrate
to
you,
love on
to
you,
love on you, to lift you up.
So if you got
So if you
anything that's
got
going
anything that's
on
going
now or
on
that's
now or
coming
that's
up
coming up down the road,
please share with us
all
how people
about
can
it, how
connect,
people
support,
can
be a part of
connect,
what you're
support,
doing.
be a part.
We just want to know
We just
all
want to know
about it.
all
So
about it. So
tell us what's
tell
going
us
on,
what's going
Keeya,
on,
and how we can get locked in.
Right. Well, I have a book. This is 1000 Elsewhere, a true survivor story. This is the story. This is what I expressed out of today, which was what has happened to me from childhood to early adulthood. And also, there's a movie called Stone and Crenshaw by Ving Productions and I believe it's Silver Slippers Productions as well. I may have said that part wrong, but anyhow, Ving Productions put out this movie, Stone and Crenshaw, which is, I believe, the third or fourth movie that they've put out, and it's going to be on Tubi. And so I play my debut acting role, and I am a psychotherapist. I'm trying to tell you, God has a sense of humor, because I'm a psychotherapist, and my role is with the lead detective, his psychotherapist, as he busts a human trafficking case. And they're loosely basing some of this on my life because they're looking at the possibility of doing one that is about my life. And that picks me up. And so this introduction character. So be praying for me. But I look forward to 2026, that debuting on Tubi, and I'll definitely let you guys know more about it. How do you reach me? gmail.com, KeeyaVawar If you want any booking requests or anything of the like, you want me to be on a podcast, or you want me to keynote, there is a cost for keynotes now. I'm just going to let you know. Uh, but you can get a hold of me. I'm also on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. I'll soon be having a YouTube channel, but right, Keeya, KeeyaVawar. You'll be able to find most of my socials at Keeya Says, and that's at sign KeeyaSays. That's going to be TikTok and your Instagram. And so I'm available. I'm here. I'm out here. I've pulled back a little bit from the social media, but you can always DM me, because I'm always in my DMs trying to encourage people and just keep the faith and keep people faithful. And so I just use these things as tools. Otherwise, I could be off of social media, but it's a tool. And so that helps me to thrive. And so it helps us to connect. And so I'm available to connect.
Awesome.
And
if you're really cool, you might get a number. I can't get that out.
I can't get that out.
Not very many people get that. You're amongst the.
So I feel extra special.
I feel extra special.
Yes, you are.
I got direct
contact.
Push the button.
That's right. Anytime. And use it. Feel free.
That is awesome.
Absolutely. So again,
Keeya, thank you so much.
And listeners,
she's told you how to connect with her, how to be a part of her experiences,
products
and services.
Please do tap in.
Please do support.
Please connect
and anything that you can offer that might be able to assist her in the works that she's doing.
If nothing more, keep her in your prayers. She's doing a mighty work of God, walking in her purpose. And for those of you who understand what it means to walk in your purpose, there's a lot that goes into that. It's more than money. It's more than time. It's a lot of
sacrificing. And it's just doing a work that is of God. It's always going to be a high priority.
And so,
it's not an easy thing, but it's definitely worthwhile.
And so I'm
thankful for
what he's doing
through you.
I'm excited
for what's in store for you, and we'll definitely be following you along and looking for all the exciting and wonderful things that are going to come out of the works that you're doing.
You are just
scratching the surface,
and
I know you're going to be a huge blessing to the masses, not only locally but around the world.
I receive it.
So
yes, we're gonna claim
that right now.
Right now.
So yes.
Thank you, Joseph.
Absolutely.
And for my listeners, if you've enjoyed our broadcast this evening,
please subscribe,
please share, please like.
Because this is what the Blessings in the Streets podcast is all about. We want to encourage, we want to uplift, we want to make sure that everybody understands the importance of what it means to be in relationship with Christ. He loves us unconditionally. He wants nothing but the best for us. And if you don't currently have that relationship, today is a mighty fine day to make that happen. He's just waiting with open arms to receive you. And so we're not telling you, again, anything that we heard. We're telling you something that we know from firsthand experience. So please do take full advantage of that and make the most of it, as only he can provide to you. So with that said, remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and I thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, you keep fighting that good fight. Keep leaning and trusting in God, depending upon him, relying upon him. You don't have to carry that burden, that weight all by yourself. Give it to him and watch him work in miraculous ways to navigate through all of that. Not only being a blessing to you, but equipping you to be a blessing to so many others. So until next time, you take care of yourselves and have a great rest of the evening. I'll see you then. Take care.